And I think someone else from Illinois, I recognize that. I recognize your logo, your owl logo. How are you, Jason? It's nice to see everybody.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thank you.
We'll wait a few minutes while a few more people join, but let's just center in while we're waiting. And as they pop in, they can see our beautiful faces as we meditate for a minute. Just transition to our next segment of the day. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your hands, their place in space. Just bring your awareness to that heartbeat and breath. And watch the self-regulation happen just as we give them space. Let's do about 3 more breaths together. Bringing them a little deeper into our lower lungs. Nice, slow, long exhale if that feels good. And after those 3, we can gently open our eyes if we chose to close them. I was noticing I'm a little wired right now. I'm like, I think just with all the very many changes happening minute by minute for our conference and with all the presenters, but a good energy. And I thought tonight, we're always looking for new ways to support CASA members, educators everywhere. And Michelle had reached out to me with exciting news that, she had been teaching a mindfulness course at her high school, and then it got so popular, there's now a co-teacher, and now the school is looking to move her into more of a leadership position for all. She'll be able to tell us more about what her new job responsibility is. And so she was looking for ideas because she's needing to make proposals and kind of figure things out for next year. So as executive director, I'm always like, hey, well, we have a lot of members. I'm sure there's other people in similar new roles as SEL coaches, SEL specialists. Of course, we know Matt Dewar, our former cousin president, who's presented before, and he is an SEL specialist at his high school in Illinois. But just because Michelle and Matt are in high schools, like that doesn't mean that we're going to narrow our conversation just to that age group today. I just thought this would be an informal group. We can go up to 90 minutes, but it might not be that long. It kind of depended on how many people showed up and would want to be sharing. So we'll just how about we just kind of see how it goes. Maybe we'll start by just giving little introductions and maybe share what maybe you're hoping to get out of this evening, share what your role is in your school and kind of what your priorities are this year, or what your goals are for next year, what you're trying to formulate in your mind. And hopefully today we can expand our vision of what is possible together. How's that sound? Thumbs up. Michelle, do you want to start and just do a brief introduction? We'll all do little introductions and then you can share a little bit further after that. And then Matt's going to share a little bit more extensively of what he's doing in his school after we all do introductions. And then we'll open it up, to everybody. But that doesn't mean we can't interrupt Michelle and Matt as they're talking tonight. It'll be really informal.
Yeah. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate all the help and the time you're giving for this. My name is Michelle Martin, and I am entering my 30th year of high school teaching. And up until 5 years ago, I taught French. And then the mindfulness kind of came personally to me, and I thought maybe my school would be open to the idea, which they were. So we offer 2 one-semester mindfulness courses for credit as a PE health wellness elective.
Yeah, and your PE health elective is, I remember it's a little bit different than like Illinois standards, like because you got Indiana standards, right? So you
We
didn't.
do.
Yeah.
Mhm. We do. Yes.
That is so cool.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
And Michelle has presented at our first 2 in-person conferences, and we've recorded those. So if you want to go on our member site, kind of look back at those past conferences, you'll find her sessions. Matt, do you want to go next with a short one?
Hello. I've been at Lake Forest High School, which is just 30 miles north of Chicago, for 19 years. And I've been an English teacher, a wellness teacher, and a well-being coordinator for the school and district. And then that position 2 years ago or 3 years ago turned into a SEL instructional coach position. And all of the work of the well-being coordinator and the SEL instructional coach really initially came out of integrating mindfulness into various spaces in the school. And because it was so widely received academically and athletically in both spaces, then the well-being coordinator position started. Then we started revisiting and sharpening our SEL efforts as a school. And then we got to a point where the school felt comfortable just having me direct my efforts specifically in helping teachers integrate mindfulness and SEL into the classroom environment, the curriculum, and then instructional methodology. And so my work now is really supporting teachers as they integrate mindfulness-based SEL in those 3 areas. So.
Awesome. And I think I mentioned it before, but Matt was our inaugural COSM board president and did our first keynote. And this fall, a new book with New Harbinger, the Mindful Breathing Workbook for Teens. Got to do a shout out there for you. Oh, I see Duke is on too. Hi, Duke. Dina, do you want to, we're just doing little short introductions, and then Michelle and Matt are going to do a little longer sharing, but we can interrupt and ask questions, and then we'll do kind of everybody can share a little at the end.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm kind of new. I have started this mindfulness journey with a principal 2 or 3, well, it's been almost 4 years ago when I was suffering from seizures, and mindfulness actually stopped all my seizures, to make a long story short. So it's very impactful for my well-being and my life. It has changed who I am. For my district, we started mindfulness. I have taken it kind of the lead position in it and continued to develop it and kind of push it to continue in our district, because they start new initiatives and then things kind of like being in a public school, we just kind of go by the wayside. Well, I was like, this is not going anywhere if I have anything to say about it. My school embraces it. I do a once a month meditation session in our body scan for our whole entire district. And I also did a training for our new teachers this past summer for those that are coming on board. And I continue to support teachers in mindfulness very unofficially. I'm a reading specialist by trade, so that is my primary position. But I also am very passionate about incorporating mindfulness into literacy and the executive skills and building all of that with SEL. So all the literature that I do use with my students is a mindful or SEL oriented theme. And if I had the money and everything, I would delve into a lot more research with reading comprehension and mindfulness, because that is a huge passion that I am looking into right now and just absorbing. And I'm just kind of doing a lot of work with my own very low challenging readers right now. And it is engaging, it is promoting, it is motivating them, and it's working what I'm doing. So it's exciting. I have a lot, I'm a newbie. I like am just, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing something that I think makes sense. The kids really love it. They love coming to my space, So that's a little bit about me. I'm elementary as K through 5.
Okay, thank you.
Title I school.
In Delaware, or you probably
In Delaware. I'll get it out.
Jason, do you want to share next? And tell about your foundation as well as part of it.
Yeah. So my day job is I work as a writer and a designer and a video game developer studio. So I'm not directly working in education, but about 10 years ago, I founded this nonprofit to provide mindfulness training for teachers called the Mindful Teacher Foundation. And we've been offering each fall, we've been raising funds to offer this training free of charge to teachers in our local area in Champaign and Urbana, Illinois. And also working with some clients have reached out to us and have asked us to provide that training for their instructors as well. And so COSM has been something that we've talked a lot about and have wanted to get more involved with, but haven't yet done so on an organizational level. We do have some of our faculty who's been involved. Mia Donovan has been who now lives in Maryland, has been helping with the chapter there. But really, I'm interested in and really seeing what's going on in the state, in the nationwide, and potentially look at how our organization may be able to grow and help support educators in other areas and communities. One of the things that we did recently was apply to the Illinois State Board of Education to become authorized PD hour providers. So we're hoping that application is successful. So that would be, I think, easier for us to expand to the state. And with COVID, we shifted from, as a lot of places did, shifted from in-person training to online, which has also expanded our capacity in that regard as well. So really just here to listen and learn and hear more about what other people are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Duke, do you want to give a short intro?
Sure. I'm a social worker at Mundelein High School. I've been practicing mindfulness for many years, and I've tried to infuse it into the school as much as I possibly can. I'm curious why there aren't more social workers pursuing this type of work and using it and helping to spread it throughout the schools. So that's something that interests me, and I want to kind of maybe try to formalize the work that I do at the school. So that's why I'm here, to listen to folks that have reached that ability to do that in their district, to have like a title and to, have some teeth behind what they're doing and pushing. And I'm also getting my doctorate, so I'm probably going to do my thesis on mindful eating for teachers, to see if that has any benefit, because I know how difficult the teaching profession is these days.
When we have time to eat.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's me.
Yeah, thanks, Duke. That's exciting about getting your doctorate. And Duke's been at our in-person conferences or Administrator Academy, so, and knows Matt already, so it's good to see you again. Anne, do you want to go next? Oh, Athea's on here too. Hi. We're just giving short little intros, and then Michelle and Matt are gonna share a little bit more extensively, maybe 15 minutes each, and then we can jump in and ask questions and go as long as we want, maybe up to 90 minutes. If you have to hop off early, you don't even, I know Dina needs to, but go ahead, Anne, and then Athea can be it next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Casa. I am an instructional technology coach with the Learning Technology Center out of one of the regional offices out of Champaign in Illinois. So every one of us have our own little specialty, and SEL is mine. And so I try to connect as much technology into the SEL as possible with a lot of the self check-ins and things of that nature. I go to a couple of different districts and talk about, trauma-informed practices, and it's a pretty fun job. I really like it. I'm in 2 different districts mainly right now, but I have gone out to another one, and I also teach yoga at a local yoga studio, and I'm working with them to bring a mindfulness for educators workshop into the studio, and trying to get more educators involved, because I do have all of our classes online. And so, thought process going, maybe we can bring some of the schools in to those online classes that are happening. So lots of fun in all kinds of directions. So I'm here to just see what others are doing. And again, if you have any ideas on how to bring technology into the piece, let me know, because I'm always looking for more ways to do that. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Anne. And I wanted to shout out that Anne and Athea are both COSM board members. So thank you for being here in that capacity as well. All right, go ahead, Athea. Glad you could make it.
Hi, everybody. Short version, I am just a little spark in the dark trying to make my mark. I am a mindfulness educator at KIPP, Texas Public Schools, and I work with about 700 plus students in a given week. They have a full-time class. I am facilitating that class and have been doing this type of work in schools for nearing a decade. I work with educators and parents as well, just in the small ways that I can, because my time is occupied mostly with the students that I'm teaching. This past semester, well, I should say the fall semester, I did a book study with some educators, and then this semester I'm doing a book study with some parents, all based on mindfulness, yoga, mindset practices, and have just worked with educators in other ways and trainings and such over the various years.
Thank you. Thanks, Athea. I have to do a shout out. Athea has a book. It's in my stack that's really high right here right now. And a little card deck. I got that next to me. And she has an amazing podcast, Mindful Living podcast. So yeah, you got to follow her on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, because she brings it every day with inspiration for teachers. So, and Matt and Athea are part of our micro-credential, MBSL micro-credential program. But yes, we want to get down to, I love meetings like this. I wish we had them more often, just because what's most exciting to me is like, how exactly does it look day to day and throughout the year, bringing all school initiatives, and keeping them going. So Michelle, why don't you just go maybe share for 10 to 15 minutes about ideas that you're having, that you're going to propose to your school for your new position, and kind of what you're, maybe hoping to learn from some of the other people here today.
Actually, that's why I'm here, to get those ideas.
But you do have, I'm guessing you had a few ideas of what you were going to do, right?
Right, yeah. So the principal has been very open about things. And I will say that my colleague and I who teach the mindfulness courses were trained with Gina Beagle in the Stress Teens curriculum. And that was about 5 years ago. And since then, we've kind of just added our own things and kind of expanded the curriculum and done different things. I think where I was going when I was speaking with my principal about this, because for 27 years I've been torn, and especially I would say the past 5 years teaching mindfulness, being torn between the French and the mindfulness. And so I have 6 preps every year. And so I never feel like I could really, I like to do it right. When I do something, I want to do it right. And so I just was being pulled in so many directions, and he was so open to allowing me to talk to him about perhaps giving up the French next year and continuing to teach the Mindfulness 1 and the Mindfulness 2, and also perhaps do some school-wide led initiatives. His response was that he felt, when we look at our school, we have a 9 through 12 college prep school. So we're private, we're Catholic. And I would say, I think his figure was 28% of those kids end up in stress centers every year, which is incredibly high, incredibly high. We do have a social worker who is overworked to the max because there's one of her with 800 students. And so his idea was, and I like it, is either, we're trying to prevent the kids from getting to that next point. We're trying to catch them early. So my ideas basically were, number one, train some of the counselors and the teachers and help them with incorporating mindfulness techniques into their classrooms, because I really think that it's like a filtered down. It can't just, I can't do it alone. Another idea I had was our current Mindfulness 1 and 2 classes are only open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We tried the freshmen, and with the curriculum that we run, we found that they were not mature enough to be able to really dig deep. And that's not on them, that's on us and our curriculum. We just felt that we needed a different curriculum for the freshmen, which is that's what I would like to do, is come in and give them a little bit more of maybe in a freshman seminar course or something like that, which we do have. I think it meets once a week for 30 minutes, which it's not very much. But I'd like to get in there and perhaps give them some mindfulness skills to help them as they transition from 8th grade to high school. So that was another idea besides the faculty and the staff. I've done book discussions before with the faculty and staff. We were given for Christmas, I don't have the book here, but it was 180 ways for self-care for teachers. And I thought, well, that's really great, but now we don't have time to even discuss the book or to even do the book. So I'd like to do something with that as well. And I've done a little bit with the athletes in the past, with our athletic teams, and going in and leading them through some mindfulness courses. Next year, we are also, my colleague and I, we're going to propose a 3rd semester of mindfulness. And in that one, I think we're going to broach the topics of mindfulness in environment, health, food, that kind of a thing, and equity and justice. So that's kind of where I'm at. Basically, I feel like my principal has given me full reign to say, okay, you come to me and you tell me, what are you going to do for us? And then we'll figure out what your duties will be, and we'll base your contract and how much you'll be teaching, depending on what else you're going to be doing for us. So those are just my initial thoughts. And I'm really excited to hear from anybody else and get some guidance, because I really feel like this is a big step and I want to do it right. And I realize that I can't do it all and I can't do it quickly, but I want to have a program or a plan in place for me so that I'm not out there floundering around. So that's basically it.
Thank you, Michelle. it lays a great foundation for our discussion. And I think Matt will be able to speak to that and maybe share some of, like, I know they do some special things for the entering freshmen at his school that are, Matt, you want to go next and share 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it ends up being?
Sure. I feel like I could get lost in the weeds very quickly. So maybe I'll try to target a few insights from having done this for a while that might be worth sharing. And then those insights might generate conversation or questions or whatever. The first insight is I learned early on that mindfulness really needs to be wedded with SEL. And SEL really needs to be wedded with mindfulness. And when you focus on one without the other, it's just, mindfulness gives the lived experiential component where someone gets to experience directly what they are in any given moment. And that's where the insight comes. That's where people have these revelatory experiences, etc. The SEL component provides a lot of structure, and it allows us to see and identify all sorts of skills related to our internal state and our social interactions that are really important to be able to pinpoint and talk about. And so when you put the two together, mindfulness-based SEL, I think you get the fullest expression of this type of work. So that's number one, because early on I started just focusing on mindfulness. Well, no, actually originally it was just SEL, and then it was just mindfulness. And then I realized, wow, these two things actually kind of complement each other perfectly. And then once I made that connection, things took off. There was attraction there that hadn't existed before. I think it's important for organizations, schools, to identify what it is they're already doing and to put those efforts into two buckets: prevention and intervention. And so when it comes to mindfulness-based SEL, Castle has a wonderful free, I think it's called a map or something on their site. You can download it. It gives 10 areas to look at. But one of the things I've done within my own district and with other districts is sit down and say, okay, how would you divide? One, do you do these things? And the way in which you do them, would it fall into prevention and intervention or both? And what schools often find is they put a lot of effort into intervention, that they're reactionary, it's reactionary SEL. And there's nothing wrong with that. And as educators, the name of the game is to put out fires. Right? We're always trying to solve problems, but that's not a sustainable strategy for mindfulness or SEL. And so really looking at, are we doing enough on the front end? And this is where you get into our teachers skillfully integrating mindfulness and SEL into the classroom, into the content and curriculum, and into the instruction itself. And one of the things I repeatedly find so fascinating is that some teachers will resist it, yet they'll take all the time in the world to deal with the problems that result from the absence of SEL. And when you bring that to their attention, they get it. All the conversations with deans and counselors and social workers and parents and all this is like, well, saying that there isn't enough time to do SEL is a non-starter, because you're going to take the time, and you do take the time, and it's compounded on the back end. So let's not do that. Let's get ahead of these issues and put some energy into preventative stuff. So that's huge. Getting schools to shift the orientation from intervention and reaction to prevention. Am I saying too much? Should I stop? I don't know.
I think that this is laying a great foundation. I definitely want to hear, and I think everybody else does, like some very specifics of what you're doing, and how maybe you started doing one thing and it changed to this, or however it's progressed.
One more kind of core principle before I get to that is schools. Okay, so Michelle, your situation is so representative of what's common, in that one person is super enthusiastic and takes the reins and goes. And that is amazing, because you're starting something and many people are benefiting. And I'm sure you've experienced that and seen the benefit, but that's not sustainable. It has to be more than one person. And I ran into that issue early on, where I was so excited to finally get the go ahead and the green light to pursue these things. But after a good year and a half, I'm like, okay, like someone else needs to jump in, because this is exhausting. So building a committee of some kind, but schools get ADD around SEL. They start looking at all these different issues and they try to tackle all of them at once. And I think if you want the most return on investment in terms of money, time, human capital within a district or school, I think you have to look at what SEL competency is most essential for all the others. And I think you have to look at who in the building needs to most embody that to spread that throughout the community. And I think quickly you get to self-awareness is everything. That people who are self-aware, who score high in self-awareness, will score high in all the other competencies. People who struggle with self-awareness will struggle in all the other competencies. So in the whole mindfulness SEL realm, if you're looking for a target for your efforts, focus on how can we develop self-awareness. And so then the question is, well, whose self-awareness should we develop first and focus on? And the core insight there, and I talked to Athea about this on her podcast last summer, and Athea's podcast is amazing. If you haven't listened to it, just awesome. Is the person of influence in any situation establishes the emotional climate and tone. And so teachers are the enduring culture of any school. Administrators come and go, parents come and go, kids come and go. Teachers typically persist. And so investing in teacher self-awareness is everything. If you're looking on where is one target in my school where I can get the most return on investment, it's teacher self-awareness. Because often when teach, and this is my job, is dealing with teachers all day long who have zero self-awareness, is that the biggest obstacle to self-awareness in a school is a teacher that lacks self-awareness. They create so many issues. And Duke probably sees this all the time as a social worker. Kids falling apart, and then you're talking to the kid and you hear what the teachers are doing to just make things worse because they have no self-awareness. So that's huge. All right, so concrete things. First and foremost, we created, I think it was 12 years ago now, which is insane to think about, a course called Wellness for Life. And it started as a pilot, and now every freshman who comes in the building takes it. And I'm teaching it again this year. And it's an SEL and mindfulness intensive course where as every freshman student who comes in the building is coming into this course and is getting exposure to social and emotional learning. We introduce them to social workers. We show them where the social work office is. We have social workers come to class and talk about various issues and things. Basically, so much of what prevents students from reaching out is they don't know where to start, and it's overwhelming. So we identify those barriers right away and kind of beat the kids' apprehension to it so that it's just less of a barrier. But throughout the year, we focus on self-awareness, internal self-awareness, external self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, relationship skills, empathy. And then we get into the topics of your typical health class. We look at different types of mental illness. Right now we're doing healthy relationships, what constitutes a healthy relationship. But we know that every kid who enters the building has a touchstone with this content, and that they have certain experiences and certain exposure to certain ideas and practices as they move forward in their high school experience. And then on top of that course, like sophomore, junior, and senior year, there's a class called Healthy Lifestyles that takes these issues further. I'm also teaching that class this year. And so we're really diving deep into mindfulness in that class because the kids are a little bit more mature and they're more interested. And there's that interesting moment where kids get their driver's license and suddenly the world becomes real, right? They have agency, they're starting to make decisions. So you can talk and interact with them about these issues in a way that you can't when they're still freshmen. Then we have a course called Advanced Health, which is even a higher level class where you're really looking at research around health, et cetera. We have a whole TA program. So like in my Wellness for Life class with my freshmen, I have 24 freshmen, but I have 4 senior TAs who have been trained and they're peer leaders. So sometimes I'm teaching, this particular unit that we're on healthy relationships. There will be times in this unit where I will initiate a conversation about certain topics and I will leave the room. And the senior TAs, the peer leaders, will take over and they'll lead groups and they'll troubleshoot and talk with the freshmen and talk candidly and give them advice, et cetera. So it's a really cool opportunity to show freshmen what your trajectory in high school can be. That at some point you could be a TA and having this positive impact on a younger student. So we have all sorts of peer leadership programs within the school, trying to get older kids to model things for the younger students.
Oh, do you have the freshmen do a little bit of time before school starts as well?
Yes.
Do you incorporate mindfulness in that?
Not
as much.
I don't know that they do. I'm sure there's elements of it, but I don't know that it's explicitly called mindfulness or whatever. We have a freshman clap in where we clap the freshmen in, and then at the end of the year we have a clap out for the seniors. So it's like a full circle. That's something we added as well.
I could just see that maybe being a good spot to add a little bit of like the self-awareness.
Yeah.
They were coming in for an orientation or something.
Yeah. So I'll stop there. But then there's also programmatic stuff that we're working on right now in terms of revisiting our school mission. And last time we did it was about 10 years ago, and we've grown a lot, and we're all a lot more familiar with SEL research. So we're kind of redoing all of that through an SEL lens. And we're in the process of, I'm kind of leading that process with, I think it's called the SEL Task Force in our school, which is awesome that we have this now, which is 12 people representing various parents, admin, teachers, students. Everyone is represented.
And then with your Wellness for Life, since it's a PE credit, do they do like so many days a week in the classroom and then so many with PE?
Yeah, so it combines the PE and health credit together. And so we're in the classroom Monday, Tuesday, and then they have Wednesday off. Then today, Thursday, we have our 80-minute block. The first half of the period, we're in the classroom. And then the second half, we're doing some sort of physical activity. And then Friday is all physical activity.
And some yoga?
we do yoga, we do meditation, walking, breathing. Today we actually played basketball, mindful basketball.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Michelle, if, like, I don't know what the freshmen do for PE or what your PE requirements are, but when you're talking about training different teachers, potentially those PE teachers might be ones to, although they can be hit or miss with whether they want to get involved with something like mindfulness.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah, it's an interesting question because I'm still in the foreign language department and I'm running the mindfulness class from the foreign language department because the PE department does not consider mindfulness to be, we're only PE. We're really not health and wellness. We're just PE. So they don't consider mindfulness to be a PE class, is what I've been told. So any funding I get from the foreign language department for the past 5 years. So it hasn't been with the PE department of 3. It's been rough, but other teachers are very open to it. So.
And so Duke, you're at a high school, right? And then Athea, you're at a elementary school, in Dina's elementary.
And middle too.
And middle too. Any suggestions for Michelle? Because I know even though it's elementary or middle, like some ideas can still.
Has anyone picked up on your enthusiasm in the building in terms of mindfulness? Because I've seen other, like I had a gym teacher who, once I kind of introduced it, he fell in love with it and has injected it into the PE program. But that was all him, you know, like he's the one who caught on and took that. Like Matt said, it's too much for one person to do. So if you can see those people that, you know, like get a little excited with the work that you're doing, get them on board, and see what, you know, what help you can get.
And I remember Matt saying at one point, maybe when I interviewed you for something, that just part of your job initially was just to create experiences over and over again. Like people who initially refused to like have any part of it, eventually 2 years later, they were ready and asked for you to come into their classroom. And then it's like, you're not ready till you're ready kind of thing.
Yeah, to kind of create a tipping point, within the school. And within the span of the first 2 years, I did over 300 classroom visits doing mindfulness exercises. So, which is why it's not sustainable. I mean, that's just a ton of time. But it was awesome because teachers, I'll never forget, an AP calculus teacher brought me in because his students kept saying they were anxious and they heard I was doing mindfulness drop-ins. And they said, hey, can we get Mr. Dewar in here? And so he approached me and he was very, not a teacher you would think would be interested in mindfulness. And he wanted everything to be measured and he wanted to create a survey to be able to gauge the benefit and everything. And so we did I think it was a 6-week intervention leading up to the AP exams. And when it was over, we had a Likert scale and all this stuff, but 100% of the kids scored it. I did two sections of AP calculus. So it was like 40 some students. 100% of them gave it a 5 out of 5 of, was this experience valuable for you? Do you want more of this? 100%, 5 out of 5 and everything. And so he, at that point, he was totally into it. And then we had an all school meeting and he actually got up to tell everyone else, hey, I was the biggest, like, I thought, you know, he was like, I thought mindfulness was a bunch of bullshit and everything. And then he said, but my students performed super well, but it was really the emotional impact on them that was more impressive. So
I'm wondering if, because I know Dina she's heading into another meeting at the hour. I have a feeling Athea could maybe share what she's doing in her school, and that might give Dina some ideas. And then I'd be interested if anybody has any ideas regarding adding those mindfulness spaces, mindfulness rooms, restorative justice, or, you know, just for Michelle's case, it could be just that's more of a self-regulation, like the, sometimes they call it the Zen rooms, but you know, you're noticing self-awareness that your stress level, or, you know, when you're checking in, you're higher, to be able to take that time out. So maybe we can hit on those too. But Thea, would you be able to share a little bit more about what you do in day-to-day in your position?
Sure. Maybe like a thumbnail sketch and overview. I've done, I guess, coaching in classes before. I've gone in with other teachers and have coached them how to, I guess what Matt was kind of talking about with his high school experience, but these are with primary teachers. That's one way that you can engage more people in the overall picture and what you're doing. And I reached out, and, you know, it was a mutual relationship. I saw that there was interest. I was interested. I wanted to see this work being implemented and what was going on in the morning circle time. And in this particular school, this was a different school from KIPP. So that's something definitely to look at if you have the time, but you have to look at what amount of time you have, and you have to prioritize where you know, it sounds like maybe that's not something I think Michelle would probably want to do right now, you know, focus on, I think, the class that you're trying to create. But Dina, I'm not sure how relevant this is, since you're a literacy teacher, correct? You reading teacher?
Reading
you know,
specialist.
Reading specialist. I mean, my position is really unique because I do this type of curriculum only. Students have a full-time class with me, and they come in and we do a mindfulness-based SEL curriculum. We do yoga movement. We do we do it all. And
that's my like ideal wanting to do that.
Yeah. And so, you know, where I come from in terms of my relationship with teachers is to help them make those connections on how they can integrate these practices into whatever subject area that they're teaching. And there's always a cross-disciplinary connection to what I'm doing, to what a reading teacher, social studies teacher, history, or a math teacher, anything. There's so many different ways you can incorporate it. One of the easiest and most practical ways is just, how are you going to set the tone for your class? You know, in the very beginning, just taking those 5 to 10 minutes to set the tone, the intention of whatever you're laying out for the work for the day, is to really optimize their mind for that particular study. I hope that makes sense, but just having that 5 to 10 minutes of check-in time. And check-in time, I think, you know, the 3 things that are super important, if you can, you know, fit them in, is doing some kind of mindful breathing exercise, some kind of movement, and some kind of self-talk, some kind of positive self-talk, intention, mantra, affirmation. Those are things that are constantly threaded through my class. And when I work with teachers, I'm definitely, you know, advocating that these are being integrated in whatever that they're doing. You know, maybe you don't do movement at the beginning, but I don't know how long your classes are, but maybe you start off with some framework of mindful breathing and incorporate that intention for the class. Maybe your students don't connect to the word affirmation. I don't know, you have to kind of play around too with what students are connecting to, and really help them understand why that talk in the mind is important, how it's going to have a positive impact for them and what they're doing. It sounds like some of your readers are struggling, right? Is from what I was understanding. And so to me, I hear there needs to be some confidence building and a lot of confidence building. And I would highly recommend that kind of positive self-talk, affirmation, mantra be incorporated into what you're doing, because learning to read is hard. And when you're already up in whatever grade level you're working with, you're already having some big barriers there. So they're going to need some of that to get through that challenge and build that resilience. And then I would say, you know, throughout your classes, just to have that brain break of getting up and moving and helping them understand that that movement, you're going to get frustrated and stressed out because it's difficult. Any learning is, but in that particular situation, you really have to release that stress from that experience that they're having. It's okay. We want them, you know, we don't want it to be completely stress-free, but also you're going to know the tone and of your students. You're going to know that feel when it's time to take a break every 10 to 15 minutes if you need to, and figure out, you know, I don't know how familiar you are with yoga movement, but that is something that's super practical that you can incorporate into your classroom, taking just a few minutes. You don't have to be some super yogi to benefit from the movement and to have them understand not only is the movement good, but to get into your body. We want them to feel, you know, and feel what those sensations are in their body. And that's going to help them navigate those difficult moments. The more that they can feel what these sensations mean and what recourse that they have when they feel these different sensations in their body. Oh gosh, you know, when I'm reading this passage, I want to just like, I'm gripping my jaw. And so that I would recommend those three things for sure, integrated into your class. You can do them no matter what you're teaching. And I really advocate for all teachers to do that because it's a super easy, practical way and you can kind of make it your own thing.
Hey, Thea, how did you move into your, I'm going to make sure I'm not on mute, your position doing this full time? Did you make a proposal and what was that? And then are you a special similar to like music and PE? Maybe
yeah, so
if Dina's trying to maybe move into a position like yours, give her some suggestions for how to maybe make a proposal like that of how it could be, how you could switch how your school day is, or somehow to then have this full.
So Thea, I so appreciate everything that I heard. So many of the things that you just commented on, I do. So one of the things, I go and get my kids from their classroom. So there's a transition time. I have to use a scripted intervention that I don't stick to all the time because kids are kids. And I have morphed it, and I have morphed my specific interventions to look different. I just kind of close the door and do my thing. I actually share a room with 8 people, but I do have my own space kind of, and I just make it work. So they point to an emoji of kind of where they are as soon as they come into my space. And we just sit. I usually use a chime or a bell or something, and we settle into silence. After that, and I've taught this, I've done a lot of interactive modeling with it in the beginning of my cycle, because every cycle I usually change kids. So it's kind of like teaching in the beginning for a couple days before we even get to content of what it looks like, it feels like in my space, and what they feel in my space, and the intention of the time together in this space. So I kind of break my interventions up so that we do have movement. I have optional seating for them as well. Some kids really work better on the floor. So if there's kids on the floor, they can still see everything. I have kids sitting on balls. So there's a lot of accommodation of the physical needs of the kids too. That being said, you know, I have them for a half hour. They're my most intense kids. And what I work on first is developing that relationship and that connection with them first. Once we develop that trust between each other, then things just evolve and it just goes, it's fine. Everybody's like, you never have any behavior problems. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. This is who I am. This is how I do it. This is what works. You know, my kids are some of the lowest, and low kids can tend to have very intense behaviors. But in my space, I don't have that with them. Like it's weird. People are like, this kid's so different in your, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is what I do. That being said, you know, there's always
small. Do you have, how many kids?
So my biggest group would be like 8 kids. So my kindergarten groups, like this year I've had 2. Our schedule is very crazy. It's very tight. So I'll go get a group of kindergartners. I'll have them for 15, 20 minutes. And then I go get another group. And all this has to happen in a 45-minute period. Mm-hmm. So like, it is crazy, but I find you get more bang for your buck. If I take that extra time in the beginning, I get so much more engagement and growth from them when I've pre-taught this stuff and when we just know how to be in my space, and it just goes. It just, you know, some days we don't get through as much. If somebody's really struggling, we talk about it.
I'm not, Dina, do you mind if I intervene for just a second?
Go for it.
I don't know. I think from what you're saying, it sounds like you want more of this in your school.
Yes.
And so my suggestion to you would be, since it seems like you're already doing some of these practices, you're having some benefits. Sounds like you're having, you know, some great impact on all the students that are coming through your classroom. I would just start gathering that down, you know, putting your anecdotal, you know, experiences into something in written form that you can go to and have conversations with the leadership at your school, and just start talking to people and letting them know the impact. And that I would just start stepping in that direction. And it might it might take some time. I just met with a teacher. I think she's in Missouri. She teaches high school Spanish teacher. She had been in a conversation for 2 to 3 years with her leadership. She's now going to be teaching the first mindfulness 4-credit course at her high school. And how awesome is that? But it took her some time. She started implementing practices into her high school, just as we've been talking about. Students were having a very positive, benefit. She was getting the feedback. Others began to notice. She began to collect the data. She began to have these conversations, and ultimately was able to get a 4-credit course in her high school. I would just start stepping in that direction. What are the baby steps that you can take? And the data you already have, put it in some kind of format that you can give to somebody, or maybe not even give to anybody right now, but just reach out and start having conversations to those people on your campus. Who are those people that you need to talk to? And have them come look, have them come observe, have them check it out, and continue to engage, make it important. Because when they keep hearing, you may have said it a few times, but you need to say it so many times for people to really hear what you're talking about, right? Like, you might think, gosh, people are so sick of me talking about this thing, but keep that conversation going. That's my greatest suggestion for you. Sometimes these conversations can be hard, but nobody's going to come to you to have the conversation. You've got to have that. And you've got to go and have that courage. And I know you have it. It sounds like you're doing all the amazing things for your students. And I would definitely recommend just get kind of uncomfortable and start figuring out, who do I need to talk to? Who can I have a quick 5-minute, chat with? I know there's not a lot of time when things are moving and grooving in any given school day. Send an email, send a text, wait a while.
It's the hour, Dina. I know you have.
I know.
So anyway, that's my, just like, go talk to people and see what can keep the ball rolling.
Okay. Before I leave, what I'm going to do right now is Millennium Forum. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It is amazing. And this is my first experience with it. And it is just, it's like this big hug every week. I just love it. So
I'm excited that you're doing it.
yeah, when I went to Omega, we were given the opportunity for free. So I hopped on board and it's been great. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for sharing this space and your insights.
Yes, do you still consider doing, because Dina was on schedule to do a breakout session for us about, and like just when you were talking and sharing what you're doing every day, I think to create a short session on that would be super helpful.
Okay.
For people. It's up to you, but just
Awesome.
share like you did with us right here and elaborate a little bit more. But
Thank you so much.
Say hi to Millennium Forum for us.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Yeah. Thank you, Athea. That was super helpful. I always love spending time with Athea. And I appreciate you. I mean, just like for Matt and Athea to come and to be sharing with us, it's taking out of your time, and you're a mentor to a lot of people. So appreciate you being here. Where do we want to go next? Do you have any questions, or do you want any feedback on what's happening in your school?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Matt, you talked about one of the greatest investments being helping teachers become more self-aware. Any suggestions or anything that you've done to kind of help that along? Because I can see where that would be a crucial piece and very impactful. So any type of suggestions in that arena would be very helpful.
So I think it's important to there's so much that we've done that I want to share, and I'm trying to like condense it to the simplest form. So a part of what we've done over the last, let's say like 5 years, is dedicate up to 8 one-hour sessions throughout the school year on late starts, where teachers can choose professional development. And so typically there's 4 to 6 offerings that they can choose from, but one has always been mindfulness and SEL. So sometimes I'll get up to 30 teachers who I will see 8 times in a year for an hour on a late start. And I can progressively go into these topics, and they get super interested in it. And then they go back to their departments, and they can start talking to their departments, et cetera. And then it starts to grow. But in the process of creating education for teachers around SEL, and what I've really found out in the last 2 years is educating department chairs and instructional directors on SEL. That's even better, because once you get them buying in, then they're like, whoa. And then when the department sees that the instructional director is really interested in SEL and these topics, suddenly all the teachers are buying in now. So again, it's the person of influence establishes the emotional tone and climate. So to answer your question specifically, there's 2 components to self-awareness. There's the internal self-awareness, which is everything that we're familiar with in terms of talking about mindfulness, knowing your internal state, knowing what your physiology is showing you in real time, etc. But then there's external self-awareness, which is the ability to see yourself as others see you. So many teachers have no idea how their students see them. And the research suggests that the only way to improve external self-awareness is feedback. And so it's getting teachers to be vulnerable and to take a risk and to invite someone like me into their classroom and take video of them teaching. Right? Or that's something you can get to. Or maybe I just come in and I watch, no video. And I just say, hey, did you notice how Johnny over there responded to what you, right? And you can bring things to their attention. Someone who's not at the point yet where they want to bring someone into their classroom to look, you can take assessments on emotional intelligence. and you can take an assessment for yourself. I actually did this with my wife. I was looking at a whole host of emotional intelligence assessments, seeing which ones I liked, et cetera, because I was going to use them. And so I would take them, and then I would have her take them about me, right? So then I would get the results of what I thought my skill level was in these different emotional intelligence competencies. And then I would look at what she rated me. And so, right. So you get to see your blind spots, but get an assessment that you like, or that a teacher also likes. Find an assessment together and say, hey, you're going to take this. We'll take your scores. We'll put them on the shelf. And then I want you to pick 5 colleagues who you really trust and respect. And I want you to have them take that assessment about you. That's a cool place to start, right? Because you get to see gaps. There's 3 principles of self-awareness. It's fundamental to everything in terms of emotional intelligence, social intelligence. 2, we suck at it. We're really not good at it. And we often think we're way better than we actually are. And then the 3rd is the optimistic point, which is we can get better. We can get better through practice and through feedback. And so getting teachers to realize how a 14-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old sees them is so important. And I did this with one particular teacher who we had a moment where something went on in the class, and then we processed about it, and she had this insight, and she just broke down crying. And she finally allowed herself to see herself accurately. She stopped lying to herself. And she said that, I stopped lying to myself. I finally had to let go of who I thought I was as a teacher, who I wanted to be.
You sound like a therapist, man.
But she said that. She literally said that. I finally let that go. And when I did, I actually saw how some of these kids see me, and it broke my heart because I never wanted to be that when I signed up to be a teacher. And it was like, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, I wish this was a reality TV show. We could like show this to other teachers. So anything that allows teachers to comfortably, I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable anytime you're inviting feedback, but any way that you can make it so it's not unnecessarily cumbersome. Invite them into a space where they can start accounting for their blind spots. I think it's invaluable.
You've added some teacher identity components to like your PD that probably are helpful.
I taught a whole course, a PD course in our district called Personality and Pedagogy, where we took 3 major personality assessment inventories. And then we looked at what are the recurring themes between the different inventories. So we did like the Enneagram, we did the Big 5, and I think we've done those 2 consistently, and we rotated in, because I taught that class 3 times. I think we did the what is it, the Briggs-Myers. Anyways, and we look for themes about ourselves across the different inventories, and then we sit down and we look at how does this dictate the moves we make in the classroom, the students who we naturally connect with and pay attention to, the students who we have conflicts with, like the same archetypal student we don't get along with every year, right? And it's because we're really confronting these limits within our own personality. And so bringing awareness to that.
That's brilliant. And I never went to teacher school or college, but is that presented to young teachers? Is that taught to young teachers going through any sort of collegiate program?
I never saw that.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. I'm sure some schools maybe do something like that, but I never had that as an experience. You're right, though. I mean, that would be phenomenal to do with teachers as they're entering the field.
I would say I teach a graduate course at the local university, and they are implementing mindfulness-based SEL, and they go through that. I really have been impressed with it.
Can I, is it okay if I just add something? It's going to be really different from Matt, but I love what you said, Matt. It's like a yin yang here, but so I want to give this other just quick, who was at Duke, just because I've done so many different types of book studies with educators, and I'm very much a transformational leadership type of person that, who you are, you can make such an impact, and these offerings that you give to people. So when we talk about self-awareness, this is such a long game that we're talking about. And who knows when something might open up, like what Matt was talking about. What a phenomenal story. I hadn't heard that Matt story. I love that. But at the same time, offering teachers, whether it's circles, it can be very beneficial. And there are many different types of circles, but those can be really beneficial. They can be done virtually. I've participated in some myself virtually. That can be an access point to increasing self-awareness. These book studies that I've talked about, I just had an educator that went through a book study that we did. And, he shared with me the first time in his life that he had a degree of self-love that he's never had before. So some window within himself opened up. So in these little, small groups that might sound like, not a lot is going on, there's actually something really vast opening up, because that person that is loving himself for the first time is meeting hundreds of students who is also a part of that transformation that he's going through, and he's sharing that with his students. And the same thing with the parent book study, right? And how we reach others. And I love I love the personality stuff too, but I just think there's so many different access points, whether it be like the personality course, which I, definitely love that. We do something like that at KIP each year, just so we understand like who we are as teachers and how we interact with our students. But at the same time, book studies and circles, maybe books aren't, that doesn't sound sexy for everybody as it would for me, but maybe circles would be, something somebody would want to do. Even just, tea chats or whatever, you name whatever like is in your community, and add that little piece of mindfulness in there, whether it's a breath or just having a journal prompt or a conversation. I think those can be really important to increasing self-awareness, as long as we're adding that mindfulness-based SEL component in some way in any of these strategies.
Thank you to both of you. Thank you.
Anything to add, Jason? Or any questions?
This has been really fantastic. Thank you so much for hosting this and putting this together. We're as a nonprofit organization, we're kind of on the outside of the district or the school administration, and we've worked with a lot of teachers, but in a very scattered way. So a few teachers from this elementary school here, a couple here, and so forth. And so one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is how can we, as our organization, what can we do to help support, say, teachers who are in a position where they want to do something, school-wide, that they want to, or teachers, administrators, whoever, what kind of support can we potentially offer? So this conversation has been really has been really helpful. Also, the COSM, the anthology that you published, there's a lot of really great articles and chapters in there that I've been looking through. So it's been really inspiring. One of the things that I feel like we haven't done successfully, and I feel has been one of the things that I really want to work on next, is building that community of teachers who have gone through our programs, because they share a lot of the same sorts of interests and challenges and intentions, and finding a way to bring them together on a more regular basis, and so that whether it's a book group or something that's some other kind of container or format or structure that we're helping to provide to get those conversations going, and potentially to build some momentum. So it's been a very, in some respects, it's been a very bottom-up approach, in that we've, really kind of planting seeds here and there, and so kind of thinking about this next stage as how do we build on that to really help create some momentum at the school and district level.
Thank you, Scott.
I would say too, it's reading the patterns of your community. So whatever, I know teacher burnout is big right now. So even just the messaging and how you approach it can really pull people into the conversation, where if somebody said mindfulness-based SEL and they were like, oh my God, and just rolled their eyes and wanted to hit the floor and don't want anything to do with it. But, you mentioned burnout, or just self-care, exhaustion, or whatever it is in your particular area, that just messaging it in a way too that opens that opportunity for people to connect that perhaps wouldn't connect before.
Yeah, I would say, like, one of the real challenges that we've faced in this year in particular is attrition in our classes. So we're able to fill our courses with people who are very interested, but the level of stress and the level of the demands that are placed on teachers right now in this in this COVID climate have made it very difficult for participants to see through the program, and part of what we're trying to do is figure out how do we strike a balance between providing a mindfulness training with integrity, because it's not a quick fix. It's not something you can do, say, in an afternoon, but really requires this ongoing commitment, while at the same time just recognizing the immense pressures that teachers are under at this point. And Matt, you had addressed it, or you talked about it a bit in terms of do you invest your time dealing with the outcomes, or do you take the rather are you going to be proactive and take the initiative to to help to address these issues before they arise? But right now, in this state of crisis, it's hard to know what to do and where that balance really is.
Yeah.
Most teachers are surviving, and they're just trying to live for the end of the day, and then have enough in the tank to make it to the following day. And so it's really hard to get anyone who's living day to day to pull their head up and entertain a bigger perspective about what's going on and where they're going. So I think what you were just talking about kind of speaks to that. I mean, it's hard. It's hard being a teacher right now. A lot. I mean, I'm at a very affluent high school in an affluent community. Teachers are super spoiled and everything. And I'm hearing from more colleagues than ever before. They want to get out. And so if that's happening in a high level district that's a destination district and everything, I can only imagine what's happening in other places where people aren't as respected as much, where they don't have as much autonomy and agency and all of that. So it's next couple of years are going to be really, really interesting for just education in general?
My daughter is she's a junior at Knox right now, and is an education and history major. So is looking at teaching after she graduates. And yeah, I don't know. I know that the Chicago schools have made the have made the news nationwide in terms of what's happening. But even seeing in Champaign, there's just not enough people to fill the roles that need to be filled. So it's part of the conversations that we're having is how do we, what can we do if we, in the moment, or what can we do now to help support teachers in their work.
No, that's a hard one. And I think too, I immediately just think back to the messaging and how much of it can be where, more of the conversation can be. I guess I think about sometimes you feel like you can shut down when you think about something in school, whatever that is. But when you relate it to your life, you open up a little bit more because you're like, oh yeah, like I want that. Tell me more. And if there's more of that in the conversation, where will that lead?
We're heading down to our last 8 minutes here of our time together. I would love to have just a quick, brainstorm, because I know Michelle really kind of wanted to focus. I know you're focusing a little bit more, Michelle, on all school student programming. That's maybe where you're looking for more ideas. That we each
Principal wants to go.
Yes. Yeah, okay, that's the route he went. Okay, so you want to be giving a little bit in with that. Just to be thinking of different things like I've seen in our book, and do you have a period, or a little, what is it called when you have a second period after Pledge of Allegiance? Is there any time in every day that everybody could be sitting and having quiet time together or something? Because I know some schools do that at the beginning of the day, and then sometimes even at the end of the day a little bit. Or is that not an option? Just to be brainstorming out there of different things.
Right. And so being a Catholic school, we start the day with a prayer and we end the day with a prayer. However, our schedule is such, because we're college prep, all of the students have 2 30-minute personal responsibility times throughout the day. And they can go get teacher help, they can go to club meetings. So I have offered in the past to just do some mindfulness meditation sessions for the kids, which has been helpful, and they enjoy that. So yes, those are called PRTs for us, but that's available.
So that could potentially be something to expand upon, or something in your new.
Right.
Yeah. Any other ideas? All school students programming, high school. I mean, I know we got the mindfulness rooms. I don't know.
I made a video once. I made a video once because I couldn't get into every classroom. So then all the teachers just showed the video. It's a way to of course, in person is always better, but it was kind of a way to just kind of get it out there and present it to everyone.
I'll say that my experience was I started very small and very targeted, and I tried to make that small experience have the most positive impact and value that it could have. And then it grew and it was a little bigger. And then I invested in that new growth, and then it got bigger. So I don't want to say it's an error, but I don't know that it's necessarily always the best approach to think big first. How can we get everyone? How can we do all school? How can we, like, of course you want to get there, but I don't know that you start there, because things get so diffused, especially if it's really just you running the show. So I would say, kind of similar to what I was saying before, try to strategically find where you realistically can have the most return on investment. Where am I going to maximize my impact? What's one place in my school where I can really put a dent in things, and start there and add all, because you're just you right now. And so don't spread yourself so thin. Focus your energies to really maximizing value in one particular circumstance, and you'll crush it. It'll be awesome. And then people will start talking, and then a new opportunity will come from that, and then go after that, and just slowly start to build momentum that way. Because I think it's so easy to get ahead of yourself and to spread yourself too thin.
And you can send your principal a video of Matt saying that.
Will, I'll clip that part out.
Michelle, have you ever, I mean, it sounds like the kids pray. I mean, that mindful prayer, use that avenue, or that time where that they're praying. You could turn that into a mindful exercise as well.
Thank you. Yes, I would say, looking at the overall, the students, I would say 52% are Catholic, and then the rest are other or non-believing. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Well, does someone want to close us out with a few breaths? Matt, would you be up for that?
I like Athea. I'm volunteering Athea. I love watching Athea's stuff on Instagram.
All right, we're gonna close this out. We'll close this out. So I'm thinking, well, one of my favorites is hands on heart. So let's do that. So everybody, let's just take a moment to unwind if your legs are crossed, and place your feet flat on the ground, and take your hands and place on your heart. I want you to grow nice and tall. And just notice your breath, and you're not breathing in any certain way. And you may notice that your hands slightly rise with the inhale and slightly fall with the exhale. And see if you can grow just slightly taller in your torso, all the way through the top of your head, melting your shoulders down. And then rooting your feet into the floor if you can. And as your eyes are closed, just scanning that part in your heart, the very center. And I want you to inhale as if you're sending that breath right there to the center of your heart space. Slowly in, and just slowly out of your mouth. Keep your shoulders melted and your torso tall, with your attention there in the epicenter of your heart. Breathing in nice, deep, and slow. Really feeling your chest rise, so much so you might even feel your ribs expand a little bit. And then exhale slowly out of your mouth again. As your eyes are closed, you're going to inhale, taking a deep breath in. And this time, you're going to hold your breath at the top of the inhale for the count of 3, 2, 1. And you're going to exhale out of your nose. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more like that. Slow, deep breath in through your nose. Hold it at the top of the inhale. 3, 2, 1. Exhale out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last round here. Breathing in, long, slow, deep inhale. Holding it at the top for 3, 2, 1. Exhaling out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Staying there with your eyes closed. Just noticing any sensation in your heart space. No judgment, just becoming aware of what's there. I want to take a moment to express gratitude for each of you this evening. And perhaps make that connection personally for yourself, connecting to that intelligent, sacred space in your own heart, allowing that energy to lead your evening, tomorrow morning, and the rest of your week. Slowly open your eyes in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. I did create a new group on our member site for mindfulness leads that I think since we're recording this, I won't put this into the Learning Center, but I'll put a unlisted YouTube link to this. It might be something you want to access and show your admin of an SEL specialist and his advice. And then Matt's going to be doing a Saturday session at our conference coming up. So you don't want to miss that. Please help us spread the word. It's full scholarships, pay what you can. So even if you can just make a few sessions, register, and you can skip the payment step, whatever. We just want to get educators there learning from Matt and other thought leaders in the field. So good night, everybody. And I hope maybe we can have a check in with each other with this same group another once or twice during 2022, just to check in with each other, see how it's going in Michelle's new position.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate your time. I really do. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
You.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.